Adakole Ijogi here with us. He's a political economist. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first, your views on this, spat between Nigeria and South Africa. Something there seems to be some measure of political economist in this one. They think that the authorities there, some political considerations, which also has huge economic implications here. What do you think of it?
Well, I think, in all honesty, that what's happening, in South Africa is unfortunate. I think it's something that should never have happened in the first place. But my take on it generally, as in my own impressions about it, I think that in the media out there, it is wrongly skewed. I think you were trying to make that point a couple of days ago, where you were asking some guy, I think it's a lecturer or so, whether it was xenophobic or Afrophobic, but he didn't get the point. Actually, because we will speak as Nigerians as it affects us Nigerians. And I think that it is Afrophobic. Because what happened to the Indians in South Africa? Are their properties being vandalized? Are they being brutalized? How about the Chinese? How about other Europeans? Since all you hear is Zimbabweans, Mozambicans, Nigerians. So I think that, like, in looking at it, in x-raying it, I took the liberty of trying to find out the meaning of xenophobia. And I found out that xeno and phobia is an oxymoron, two words put together. Xeno is a Greek word for foreign. And then phobia, of course, we know what phobia is. So I think what is happening here is not, yes, it is some kind of xenophobia, but as it affects us, it's Afrophobia, because only Africans are affected. I think it's unfortunate, especially as South Africa and Nigeria, the two largest economies that you have in Africa, we are essentially like brothers. We have been Nigeria and Nigerians have been supporting South Africa for since the past 150 years. We have been relating with each other. I mean, even if you go into how much Nigeria spent funding the ANC, or people like Tambo Mbeki who were here in Ibadan during the apartheid period, time, and what's his name? Nelson Mandela was even hiding out here in Nigeria before he went back to face trial in South Africa. So I think that is a story of a Joseph, a pharaoh who doesn't know Joseph.
So what about the political economic considerations of it?
Well, I think in the economic consideration of it, you have to look at the recent African Free Trade Agreement that Nigeria signed. I mean, all of us are on that particular platform. Aside from promoting, creating a single market for Africa, there's also free movement of persons. There's also a single African currency that we're looking at on that particular platform. And if you look at, if you disaggregate the figures, you find out that within ourselves as Africans, there's only 16% volume of trade. I mean, the African Development Bank told us that between us as Africans. So we need to scale up trade amongst ourselves, and this kind of activities dampens. It creates investor pessimism. It discourages capital inflow. I mean, it's
on the part of who?
Both sides. Both sides, and if you even look at it critically, South Africa has more to gain, because Nigeria, we have, of course, the issues that we have in our economy. Our economy is about maybe 7% production. South Africa has power. They produce finished products. They have things. So
if you look at the unemployment rate, they've got a higher unemployment rate than Nigeria.
Yes, but if you put that in per capita, you know that we have actually higher employment rate. And then if you look at the poverty ratio, it's higher in Nigeria. Even if you disaggregate that in South Africa, is within the black community, which of course they have the highest population.
In what context are you looking at, the population or economics?
Sorry, say that again.
In what context are you looking at this figure that you're talking about?
Yeah, is population. If you disaggregate to population per capita, you know that Nigeria has a higher unemployment rate. If you put Nigeria's employment rate at 23%, and that of South Africa currently in 2018 is about what, 12%?
We don't have a 29% unemployment rate.
23.
Yeah, we don't have 29. They've got 29. So that's high. But even if you come back here and look at it internally, you talked about the economic policies. Yeah. But we've seen some economic policies that the government has taken over the last 100 days. Yeah. How did they come out to you?
No, before I get into that 23% unemployment rate shows up as about 18 million in the critical demography, that is 15 to 40. Shows about 18 million people, and that's a third of South Africa's population. So anyway, last 100 days. Sorry,
the economic policies, because you refer to the economy here.
Yeah.
So, but we've seen some policies too that the government has put in place to try and see that they achieve the target that they themselves have set. Which one of them, those policies now, do you think that, and how have they fared from your perspective?
Well, I think in all honesty, the last 100 days have been a little bit sluggish. The economy, looking at the figures, the economy, I think is a little bit sluggish. Not due to the inaction of this government or not due to any particular action or inaction of this particular administration, or maybe but just globally. You know, there's this sluggish way the economy has been growing. I mean, the IMF and the World Bank have tried to cut down on our growth figures just around the world. And
but if the figures have been a little sluggish.
Yes.
But yesterday, we looked at some of these figures. The inflation rate was in green. It means it was not done by oil production. We saw the electricity. And so, but yes, some in red. But it's not all been in red.
Yeah, those figures that we're looking at are year-on-year figures. If you look at it as a whole, as an economist, I scarcely look, especially when you're looking at macroeconomic indices.
So what do you prefer, microeconomic indices?
No, I prefer to look at how it affects the standard of living of the human beings. All these figures all tails to one thing, the quality of life. You know, you can say Nigerian unemployment rate is
So how do you measure that?
You measure quality of life by the indices of measuring quality of life.
These are the indices, aren't they?
Yeah, this is indices of the economy. It shows you that, okay, like here you say most of them are in green. At least even oil production is in green.
No, most of them red actually.
Even oil production is in green. But how does that oil production, say monthly oil production, affect the price of sugar, for instance?
But the performance of the non-oil sector too. We've seen growth in that sector, haven't we?
Yes, if we're looking at the 2018 figures, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, but you see all of that, when you say growth in the non-oil sector, you're essentially talking about growth in agriculture and maybe services.
Are they irrelevant?
No, not that they're not irrelevant. They are like agriculture. If you when you disaggregate the economy, we have about 46 sectors in calculating the GDP. Yeah. If you look at agri sector, you look at services and ICT, all that constitutes just about 36% of the total GDP of the economy.
What for you should the government have focused on within the past 100 days that they haven't?
Good. Excellent question. I think that since the coming of this administration, since the swearing in May 29, I thought that they would have hit the town with the programs they intend to do, because they came up with some specific benchmarks, like 10 million jobs and stuff like that. I was thinking that you go out there with specifics and you hinge that on the ERGP that you said was going to run till 2020. So I was hoping that you say in housing, you come up with a housing policy to say that across the 774 local governments, we are going to do X, Y, Z, and you benchmark that. You're going to get the funding from here. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. But you see, unfortunately, they have not been able to come out clearly with a clear position to say this is what we are going to do. And for me, honestly, I like this question that you asked. I think that the last 4 years has been a learning period. There are certain things that they have done right, or certain things that will bring stability and reduce investor pessimism. One of the things that I think that they should take very, very seriously is the value of the currency. Economic handlers or economic managers...
How is that going to happen without the nation producing?
No, there are different indices in measuring the value of the currency. Okay. I mean, we economists talk about the purchasing power parity, but I'm not even going to go into that. You see, I'll just give you this slight example. When they came in 2015, they moved pump price of petrol from 65 to 145, saying that they don't believe in what you call it, fuel subsidy regimes. If you look at the 2019 budget, there's about 305 trillion naira, that is a billion dollars for fuel subsidy, which they call, there's a fancy name that they gave it. Anyway, I'll remember.
Okay.
But let me just make this point. But you see, I tell you, my brother, if you don't pay critical attention to the value of the currency, what you see popping up now, these rumors of fuel pump increase, pump price increase, and scarcity in Southwest,
But rumors have been there for forever.
or people saying that the fiscal regime that we're spending on subsidizing fuel is too high, is burning a hole in our fiscal side of our economy. It is a simple not paying attention to the value of the currency.
Okay.
Because if you look at it, that particular sector is denominated in dollars.
All right,
now, dollar is constant. If you don't pay value, the difference that you have now is the devaluation of the naira, which pops up here as subsidy.
Okay. Let's bring in Kaide.
Okay, so earlier on, I heard you say that all these things point to the quality of life of Nigerians. I mean, you've said that the policies all point to how well this government can improve the quality of lives of Nigerians. And I remember the president making this statement about lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years. You know the kind of criticism that trailed that comment or that policy direction from the president. So a lot of people have criticized it, but then not much has been said about this being workable. So for you, if this would work, what are the things that the government need to do to ensure that this is a reality? 100 million jobs or lifting them out of poverty in 10 years?
Well, I don't think is a policy that is too far-fetched. I mean, especially when you place it to say in 10 years, that means we're looking at of moving 10 million people annually out of poverty. But if you look at the structure of the Nigerian economy, that will be very, very difficult to achieve if we continue going the way we are going. Like I've always made this point that the structure of the Nigerian economy, with other indices around it, from our budget to the structure of our budget, the way we borrow for consumption, the power challenges that we have, all of these issues will not actually make us, I've not seen policy from this administration that would make us create 10 million jobs annually. But it's something that is possible if we are focused. For instance, I have always made this point that the way our budget is structured, it cannot engender any form of development. You have a budget size of just slightly above, below 30 billion US dollars, and you have a population size of over 500, a GDP size of over 500 billion US dollars. Now, if you juxtapose that and you look at against other economists in the world, around the world, you see that our budget will not engender any form of development, especially if you look at the fact that out of that about $29 billion budget, over 70% of it is on recurrent expenditure. So I'm saying that for us to move on with this, we need to go for expansionary policies. The government needs to focus on expansionary policies. If you look at our current debt, I think it was 93 billion US dollars debt. Now we have even though 70% of that is from the states, the federal government needs to borrow for specifics, needs to borrow to fix roads, to fix infrastructure, whether they are social infrastructure, economic, or whatever infrastructure. We just need a separate stream of income, separate from the Nigerian budget. And also, if we want to create 10 million jobs, to my mind, like I said in a different platform, there's no need for pessimism. We will support them to create the 10 million jobs annually that will result to 100 million jobs. But the way to go is that you don't focus on one particular thing. It's a multifaceted structure that you follow. You go to construction, housing, agriculture, ICT. You must make clear policies on this and then tie them out and then benchmark them. And of course, you still have to fund them. We have this attitude in this country where we think that Nigeria is like a bus stop, that you are going somewhere. That it's a place that you pass through. I said, no, we should consider this country as the final destination. So we have to be responsible for the decisions that we take.
Mr. Ijogi, if I might come in now, I mean, when you said that the country needs to perhaps borrow, I can imagine a lot of Nigerians saying, whoa, hold on, haven't we borrowed enough? But let's look at what this administration has said would be the game plan. according to this administration, it says the next level is a level of consolidation. And it says the priorities remain the same: secure the country, fight corruption, revive the economy. And for reviving the economy, this administration plans to, according to it, provide jobs, particularly for the young generation. What do you make of this game plan? Is it good, consolidating?
Well, my brother, you know, one of the things that I've learned over time in politics and in governance is that intentions are not measured. It's actions that are actually measured. You can say you want to create employment. All those are lofty, wonderful ideas. The question is, how do you want to do it? This is more question.
Maybe another way to help that would be to consider, break down this 100 million you talked about, jobs in 10 years, to 10 million you said every year. Break that further down to the states. That's a little less than 278,000 jobs.
That's in the capacity of the states
every year, on the average.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
That's
on the
another-
average. Now,
Yes.
on the average, Lagos has 20 million people or thereabouts, and in many states have a lot less than that. Do you still see this? Because the president actually mentioned in that speech partnership with the states. How do you see that playing out?
Well, I think that the president is right. We don't pay enough attention to government, subnational government, sub-government in our country. I think we should pay critical attention to what the states are doing and what the local governments are doing. One of the problems of this economy, the Nigerian nation, is the misfunctionality of governance. I think we need to develop new governance models. And if we say we are disaggregating this to the state, you're right. We need to. There's too much emphasis on the federal government. If you look at the budget, like 2019, for instance, I was in a conference and I was saying people were arguing and they were saying that the revenue side of it, the 2019 budget is 6.97 trillion naira. That is how much revenue is expected in 2019. And I said that is only 52.2%. 52.2% because that is the federal government's expected revenue. How about the states?
Okay.
So
speaking about construction, sorry to jump in.
Yeah.
You know, because you mentioned it, but I do remember the Minister of State for Works, while he was inspecting some houses, I think FHA mass housing in Abuja. So at the point, I think he was quoted in August, just a couple of weeks ago, where he said at the moment, they're constructing 100,000 houses per year. So they hope to improve that to 1 million houses, to deliver 1 million houses per year. They say they want to bridge the 17 to 20 million
housing
deficits by 2033.
Yeah.
So, and they operationalizing those in terms of what you say, look, let us know what you're doing. How does that fit?
You know, that fits quite well. But I will also add that if you want to scale up from 100,000 to 1 million houses per year, let us see a work plan to say in every local government, out of the 774, you will construct maybe 50 housing units, and then you aggregate that, it will go up to like 1 million. Now, the advantages of that as an economist, I will tell you that we need to reflect local economies as much as possible. The consumer demand.
Yeah, how do you do that? Because I think government lately, they've eased off on public borrowing to free up capital for the private sector.
No, when I mean reflate the economy, I'm talking about if you are constructing housing units in all the 774 local governments, you will be injected and you put the necessary parameters of employing people that will work on the construction sites from the local government. You buy sands from the local government. It will increase reflect the local economies in those local governments, thereby increasing disposable income. One of the things that these economy handlers don't really understand is that we are just coming out of a recession.
What should we be doing to improve on where we are?
First, I would like to say that the economy handlers should pay critical attention to data. There's something I said, I postulated, Chamberlain. I said that our economic handlers usually indulge in what I call primitive economics. And primitive economics is fostering economic policies that is not based on empirical data and economic outcomes,
Such as?
but on personal idiosyncrasies, cultural and religious affinities. You must base, if you look at the data, for instance, we want to create 10 million.
How did you come to that conclusion?
Most of if you remember in 2015, when this administration came in 2015, they refused to devalue the naira. There was very many poor policy choices.
Okay, but how about now?
No, that's why I said they have learned. They have learned. So I'm expecting them now to focus on predictable economic outcomes and using empirical data to say, look, our economy is down. First, we have to fix the banks. We must reduce rates so that the entrepreneurs and the manufacturing sector can access loans.
I thought the ERGP copiously highlights what needs to be done.
The ERGP document is a plan of what we are going to do. This is the time now to do it. There should be a policy trust from government, either an executive order or some statement saying we have created a buffer, a financial instrument that entrepreneurs, manufacturing sector can access X loan at so %, not CBN, commercial banks. Secondly, they should keep inflation low. In the 2019 budget, they put it at 9.9. Inflation is about 11%. It should be single digits so as not to erode the value of the naira. Thirdly, they should create investment windows for export to improve on our balance of trade. There are just so many things that they need to do, which they are not doing. Nobody is saying.
But there's a lot of talk about agriculture.
Yes, there's a lot of talk about agriculture from CBN, the Anchor Boras program,
and all of that. Action.
Yes, I think that it should be, the talk should not be coming only from the CBN. I think it should be coming from the state governments. It should be coming from the local governments. I want to hear farmlands farm preparation land for local government
But
farmers.
the state governments are talking about agriculture, actually, some of those states. But unfortunately, we can't highlight some of those. Maybe they need to speak more for Dakole Jogi, a political analyst, a political economist to hear. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so there you go. That is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain. So.
I'm Ayo Makini. Have a wonderful day.
And I'm Kayode Kikelu. Have a beautiful day.